Please subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. Thanks, guys. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm back with Kevin Wadsworth, and we have a very special guest today, Jim Forsythe. Did I pronounce it correctly, Jim?
Yeah, I mean in Scottish it's Forsyth, I guess, but
Oh,
yeah.
you're from Scotland. Nice.
Well, like 7 generations ago.
Those
Or
aren't those the enemies of the British? Like Kevin, aren't you in a fight with the British?
Well, I live in that part of England. There's a big wall not very far from here that was built to keep the heathens out, to keep the Scottish people out. It's called Hadrian's Wall, built by Emperor Hadrian. So
Well,
yeah, the English and the Scots have a bit of rivalry.
my wife is Welsh, so
Oh, okay.
More rivalry there as well. Yeah, the United Kingdom isn't always quite so united.
Well, look, guys, we invited Jim because, well, I remember, just to give you a little background, guys, like maybe two years ago, Jim, I got nominated for this the award. It was called Sound Money Advocate Award. Is that
yeah,
how?
Sound Money Leadership Award. Yep.
And after that, I met Jim. He gave me a CAG. I won a CAG. I didn't even know what that was. I said, "How do we sell this?" That's when it started, like kinesis and all that. They're starting to, oh, okay. Then we started understanding, and here we are today. But look, Jim has a huge background. Last time we talked with him, he explained us a little bit of his background, but he's done a lot of different things. And I think the best, Jim, right now is maybe I'll give you the stage so you could just outline where you came from, what you're doing now, and how we could all help each other going forward.
Sure. Well, first off, congrats on the Sound Money Leadership Award. We never had like a formal award ceremony or anything like that. But congrats on that. We saw like the charting you did for gold ventures on all the miners. And it was clear that while you look at technicals, you're also understanding sound money, and that comes across in what you do. So congrats on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So my background, I actually studied Russian in high school and went to the Soviet Union in 1984 and 86. And I got to see what communism looked like up close and personal. And that instilled in me a real belief in free markets. I joined the military to defend against the Soviet threat and did such a great job. The wall came down soon after I joined. And then, years later, I met Ron Paul at the Liberty Forum up in New Hampshire. And he announced he was exploring a run for presidency and loved what he had to say, what his track record was. So I campaigned hard for him. He endorsed me to run for Congress. The timing wasn't quite right for that, but I ran for state Senate a couple of years later, got elected, and then served as his campaign chair in New Hampshire in 2012. So he's I always believed in freedom because of that Soviet Union experience, but he's the one that tied it into sound money and the importance of sound money. Then, years later, we see Silver Squeeze kicked off, and I started to get very active in the sector again. And I realized it looked like the timing was getting close for fiat to fail. And I wanted to, help protect people. So we formed a nonprofit, Citizens for Sound Money, Marion Ward, the executive director. And yeah, the Sound Money Leadership Award we did shortly after that. But we spent the first couple of years building up resources. Our goal is to encourage people to use sound money and protect the right to do so. So that first part is trying to get people to use sound money, not just stacking, but also use it, spending, saving, use it as their bank account, replace fiat, rather than wait until it's too late. And then the second part, defend people's right to do so, is the legislative effort. And like I said, first 2 years building resources, but we have the resources now, and we hired Daniel Diaz as the legislative director. He has a ton of experience in lobby efforts. He was a state chair of Young Americans for Freedom, has worked on a number of campaigns, and he's been fantastic at moving the ball forward. And so we put out a legislative initiative where we're targeting like 5 to 6 states with an omnibus bill that would eliminate sales tax, affirm gold and silver as legal tender, optionally, depending on the size of the state, set up a state depository, and then finally to set up asset-backed digital currencies in the state so that people could use gold and silver as legal tender. And really excited to be working with Florida on this, working with the governor's office, and have already gotten some good endorsements from the Christian Family Coalition. So that's where we're at today.
Wow. That's I don't know, man. I kind of getting goosebumps. That sounds like a pretty big deal there. Like, right, we're embryonic stages of something that could be, look, this is for 5 to 6 states. Are there other states where this roadmap where you guys are going has already been rolled out?
Well, let me acknowledge the great work of Sound Money Defense League, particularly JP. So they've been targeting all the states in terms of limiting sales tax, allowing state treasurers to hold gold and silver, et cetera. But they haven't been focused on asset-backed digital currencies. So what we decided to do is carve out a niche. It's kind of a bolder line of attack to go after establishing asset-backed digital currencies. Hello.
Didn't want to be.
But so we play a support role on their efforts nationwide, and then we're doing these bigger bills in a targeted number of states. But it's funny, we already got a request from one I can't remember if it was Oklahoma or Arkansas. They saw what we were doing. It's like, can you add us to your list? So, but yeah, in terms of, when we're meet with the person we're meeting with, Florida said, we really need to get this right, because this is not just going to be national news. If we do it, it'll be global news.
Well,
so can you explain, Jim? I mean, I'm sitting here in the UK, and gold and silver has always been legal tender. We've got gold and silver Britannias, which are classified as legal tender, and the sales tax doesn't apply there because it is legal tender. But of course, people don't use it as such in their everyday sort of purchasing of goods and services. So can you just explain kind of how this is different to the historical fact that, for example, here in the UK, it's still legal tender? How's it going to get people to actually start viewing precious metals as having more of a monetary role?
Well, I think that asset-backed digital currency portion is what's key, because you can declare it as legal tender, but in our case, we're not going to make it compulsory for people to accept or for people to pay in. We'll have it where you can pay your taxes in it, et cetera, but a vendor doesn't have to accept it. And these days people are highly moving towards digital versus physical, even in dollars and cash. And so that digital component, I think, is the key to enable it to see use in this kind of 21st century.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was talking to Pat just earlier on, I think it was yesterday actually, and we've been talking about charts that illustrate very, very clearly how gold has a huge advantage over fiat currencies. And one that I put out myself, which I think a lot of people would find absolutely amazing, incredible, and hard to believe, is that if you bought your house in dollars 50 years ago, you would need 100 times as many dollars to buy that same house today. So that the house has gone up 100-fold in dollar price. But if you had bought your house in gold coins, and if gold was your currency, then that same house would cost exactly the same today as it did 50 years ago. So you could say, in that sense, that the houses haven't gone up in value; they have maintained the value the same as gold has. We're comparing everything to this paper currency, not just in the United States, but across the world globally, and comparing or assessing the value of something in an infinitely creatable piece of paper it just doesn't make logical sense. It's almost a triumph of the banking system and the politicians and the powers that be to convince us that this is the way to store our wealth. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and since we had this discussion about, and first off, thanks to you guys for putting together some charts for the it's the legislative policy impact document that we're putting together, or we have put together. That's what we're meeting on shortly. Yeah, really, thanks for those. But yeah, putting the dollar in denominator really distorts all the charts. That's something I see you guys are really good at, is filtering that signal out and putting it back to put gold in the denominator, and then the charts become a lot more clear. So yeah, like Dow to gold, S&P to gold, housing. It's a big debate. Happy Hawaiian, I keyed him in on your Twitter, because everybody's saying we're in a housing bubble. He's like, no, we're not. And your charts really show that no, it's maintained its value with respect to gold. Yeah,
That's
the
right.
dollar price is going massively up, but priced in gold, it's about on average.
That's why what you're trying to do is going to help people, because this is a thing. While in gold, they haven't gone up, but if you're not holding gold and you're holding fiat, you've lost purchasing power essentially, right? So somebody who hasn't preserved their wealth holding gold or never had access to real estate, if they're getting paid in fiat and that fiat's getting inflated away, then they're kind of trapped, right? It's creating, people are not able to maintain their wealth. So by educating them, by telling them you could be sovereign, you could be your own central bank. Don't wait for the government or central banks to tell you hold gold, to preserve your wealth. People can start doing it themselves, right? Like kinesis and physical bullion and stuff like that. So, and those 100-year charts, nobody's looking at them, but we clearly see, like, you've seen these charts, right? Gold, oil price in gold, or even oil price in silver, they went sideways for 100 years, while in fiat, we know what oil went from a quarter a barrel all the way to 80 bucks a barrel. And Kevin did that chart again with housing. Look, they have cycles like this, guys, up and down.
Yeah.
Over long periods of time. It's what we're seeing in price appreciation. Whatever is denominated in fiat, it's simply because the fiat is getting blown away there by whatever money printing.
Another way of thinking this is that if you are looking at real things like houses, oil, gold, silver, commodities, they fluctuate against each other like that, up, down, but over time, trending along sideways in a channel. They're all sort of battling against each other for supremacy. But ultimately, if gold loses to one of those things for a while, it will then win against that thing for a while, then it'll lose, then it'll win, but over time it goes sideways. There's only one direction that it's going to go in if you're measuring it in US dollars, and that's sort of from bottom left to top right of your chart, because it's not going up in value. Nothing's going up in value. It's the dollar that is going down. I have to get that into people's minds. It's the dollar that has lost 98% of its purchasing power in the last 100+ years since inception. So stop thinking something's going up in value when you measure it in dollars. Measure it in gold, then you'll know if it's going up in value. It's pretty. You'd think it would be a fairly simple sort of idea, but it's just we're so indoctrinated not to think that way.
Yeah, and the big scam is capital gains on gold. It's like there hasn't been a capital gain. It's maintained its purchasing power, but because of inflation, then you can show it as a capital gain and tax it. And so that's going to be a harder fight to fight, because that's at the federal level is fighting that capital gains tax. But
is it going to be on the physical bullion, or it's anything, futures, options, anything that's traded on gold? How is that going to be cut out?
Are you talking about
the capital gains tax on gold there? Or sales tax? Was it just for the sales tax?
Well, at the federal level, which is capital gains is, but then they also have a collectibles tax, where if it's if you got bullion, they treat it as a collectible. It's a higher tax rate. Things like kinesis load, basically asset-backed digital currencies are kind of in a gray area, because they could be treated like crypto, which is straight capital gains. They could be treated as a collectible. Of course, everybody's choosing to clean them what's more beneficial to them, which is capital gains. But these things shouldn't be taxed at a capital gains rate, because it's not a capital gain. It was interesting that the charts you guys did, like everybody's saying, add Bitcoin, add Ethereum. It's like, no, this is a 100-year chart. You could add it, but where are you going to anchor it? Imagine, going to states and trying to get them to adopt something like this. 10-year track record, 10, 15-year track record's not long enough to make a move that bold, I think. So.
Definitely. That's my biggest pet peeve I have with online traders is they've been sold the bill that Bitcoin's a commodity because the SEC says so. But when you look at the charts, the aggregate of market participants have been treating it like a BlackRock ETF, like a NASDAQ, so, and look, you got to go. It's been doing that for 10, 11 years, and people are expecting it. It's going to be different. Well, look, until it does be different, then that's what you got to treat it with, right? It's like people cannot live on the hopes. It's not playing the probabilities, thinking something's going to change its trend, right? It's like when you're French Riviera, it's plus 30 Celsius today. Well, the next day, there's a good chance it'll be plus 30 until it's not. Isn't that something in weather forecasting? We shouldn't do that, Kevin?
Well, there's another phrase that sums it up. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. At least it is for now anyway. So
yeah, look,
Bitcoin reacting the way it has been, as you say, it reacts just as a tech stock does, as Nasdaq does. So, until it stops quacking like a duck, then it's going to carry on being one.
but yeah, I want to be clear though. Bitcoin really has woken people up to this whole idea of sound money, and I'm very grateful that it also, launched blockchain into prominence, and I think blockchain is definitely a path to the future of sound money. It's just, there's kind of a speculative bet, there's a more safer bet, and I view gold and silver, especially once you wrap it on the blockchain, to give it the same advantages that crypto has in terms of transferability, divisibility. Then I'm grateful for Bitcoin and all the crypto folks who've kind of highlighted this issue and showed a path forward. But my campaign manager when I ran for state Senate was a big Bitcoin guy, and so I found out early on, and I actually got, at that moment I was like, this is fantastic. You're doing an end run around the banks, but you need to do something like this for gold. And it's taken a while to get there, but
yeah, and of course, Bitcoin's got may well have a big part to play. I don't want people running away with the idea that we're particularly crypto bears or anti-crypto or anti-Bitcoin, anything like that, because it's just a case of proving itself. As you said, it's a very young kind of instrument, and it takes much longer to prove itself. It takes a greater period of time than, as you say, just 10, 15 years. But time will tell with Bitcoin. It may decouple, it may start to behave in a different way, but until the technical evidence is there, then we just have to stick with the evidence that's in front of us. But quite rightly, as you say, that blockchain technology is likely to be key to everything going forwards.
And it's been encouraging. There used to be a lot of animosity between like Bitcoin people and gold people, and it seems like that's really changed over the last year or two, where there's a lot more cooperation. In fact, our inroads for Florida were made at a blockchain, crypto conference, and people were very receptive to asset-backed digital currency. So it's a matter of risk reward, and in terms of balancing kind of the speculative sound money versus tried and true sound money.
Absolutely, yeah, and both cryptocurrencies and gold are different sides of a coin that is both battling in a way to forge a path towards that sound money principle, that decentralized idea where we're not all at the behest of the Federal Reserve and the banking system to just press a button and print another few $1 trillion and then end up sort of impoverishing the entire population. We can see how it's going in Argentina. We can see how it's gone in Weimar Germany or Venezuela and all of these countries that are experiencing hyperinflation, Turkey as well. It's the ultimate destination of all fiat currencies, and the US dollar is not somehow complete, not somehow protected from that. And the dynamics will be exactly the same, but a lot more devastating. So,
yes.
In my mind, it's a case of trying to avert disaster before the ultimate disaster and the inevitable disaster befalls the United States, and that has to be applauded.
Yeah, speaking of Turkey, Citizens for Sound Money gave out a scholarship to a guy in Turkey, Serhat, and he started up a Citizens for Sound Money Turkey channel, and he's really done an amazing job at educating people out there about sound money and getting them onto asset-backed digital currencies. So kudos to him for doing that.
Yeah, I was just out in Turkey a few weeks ago, and the Turkish people are fascinated by the idea of what we're talking about here, asset-backed digital currencies and digital gold, and of course they're great advocates of physical gold. The Turks are well aware of the value of gold in terms of protecting wealth. So it was I was preaching to the converted there most of the time.
And that's where the Kinesis Mint is in Turkey. So we have some good friends in Turkey.
Good stuff.
Well, yeah, they for me, my takeaway is everybody should be their own central bank. Don't wait. Look, even if this as long as you're holding gold or something real, they could do whatever they want, the central bank, right? It's bad for the people who don't hold gold or silver, like a portion of their wealth, or real estate, or something real, because they're going to get trapped. They're going to get poorer and poorer. But if you have a chance, you could protect against the fiat debasement. And look, I don't know, the end of when you said the end of fiat, Jim, it's not about the US dollar not being the reserve currency. It's just being what an end game scenario here in the States. Because I don't know if there's going to be, like, I was talking about that with Kevin, like it could be in 30 years. Like when you see countries who don't have the capacity to print their own money, they're still running. Lebanon, Turkey, the fiat's going from 10, 100, 10,000, you know, those curves, but the country's still running, right? It's just, even if that happens in the States, like, well, what's going to happen to the US dollar there? It's just going to be a piece of paper, but it's not going to disappear, right? Is that?
I mean, the countries are running, but having been to Turkey, they're not running happily, and the local populations are becoming incredibly impoverished. They must be a very tolerant society, is all I can say, because the prices in the shops there are much the same as they are here in the UK, but they're earning about 15% of what we are here in the UK in terms of their take-home salary.
So there's pain, Kevin. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we're gluttons for pain. It's like, how much pain are we going to? No, it's like it's the frog burning. We always think it's a cataclysmic event that's going to happen. But before we have a guillotine moment where we chop off the head of our leaders, I just don't see it. When is that going to happen? I don't like. Are we ever going to get there? I think we're going to get much, 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 much poorer before we do something about it.
I think that's true for people that don't protect themselves, right? But that's our goal, is to encourage people to develop something in parallel, to start using sound money in their daily lives. You know, not just a stack, but also, you know, start using it. And, you know, with blockchain, debit cards, you know, where you can swipe it. You know, you guys are Canada and overseas have the virtual debit card where you can, you know, reduce your fiat balance down to zero and spend gold and silver. So it's really possible these days, and that's what we're all about, is trying to encourage people to, you know, develop this parallel system where they're using gold and silver in their daily lives. Because people make the mistake of, well, you know, I got to pay for my groceries in dollars. That's fine. You know, you have to pay for groceries in dollars, but that doesn't mean you have to save in dollars. You should not be saving in dollars just because that's what you have to spend. And with the ability to do point of sale conversion now, there's really no excuse to start really adopting sound money in daily lives.
Yes, 100% agreed. It's like we're preaching to the choir. I know sometimes we start ranting up, but you're there, Jim says, guys, I was there before you guys. I know all this stuff.
No, well, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, it's funny when we met and you were like explaining all this stuff. I go, yeah, I know. Well, it was funny. Daniel Diaz, he's been a big crypto guy, and that he came to sound money through crypto, which has been a great experience talking with him. So then we started talking about gold and silver. And he's like, guys, look at this S&P chart versus gold. Like, it's beat the S&P. How's that possible? I go, yeah, I know. Yeah. I thought he had discovered something. I was like, yeah, no, we know.
Well, it's great. It's great to discuss this, because one day I can't wait to go to that family party where somebody else in the corner comes to me and talks to me about gold. You know, I'm waiting for that moment, because right now it's deer in headlights. I'm there. I'm talking, like, we're talking all this with people, my family members. I can't wait for somebody else to talk to me about it. You know, it's going to be
yeah, that's really changed. I got to be honest. Like, you know, when I was in the state Senate, I was like the crazy gold guy, and you know, I knew it was kind of. Well, I thought 2008, you know, things were going to happen. So I talked about it with my colleagues a lot, and they're like, yeah, we'll see. Well, I've talked to some of the same people now, like up in New Hampshire, about having allowing the state to hold some of its funds in gold. And they're like, I think that's a great idea. So times have changed.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and as you say, I think cryptocurrency's got something to do with that as well, because it's awoken people's sort of minds to just, you know, different alternatives, different options, and different ways of setting up the monetary system. Something has to change, because if we don't make a change out of choice, a change will happen, you know, in a much more uncontrolled way, which wouldn't be good.
Well, I think besides crypto, also just what happened during COVID in terms of money printing. I mean, it was quite literally insane. I mean, they brought out the bazooka, you know, and that's going to happen again. And so I think that woke even a lot of very, you know, non-gold bugs. Like, you know, I remember I tipped somebody with silver and they're like, why are you giving me silver? It's like money printing. They go, oh, okay. You know, like it's a much easier conversation now.
If people can just make that connection between, say, for example, there's going to be if there's a banking crisis in the next year or so, gold reflects that, like it did in 2008. Gold, you know, did a V-shaped recovery and off it went to all-time highs. And that's precious metals. People talk about gold sniffing stuff out. It's not sniffing anything out. It's reflecting the total erosion of purchasing power. The amount of money that would need to be printed to shore up the banking system yet again, that would be reflected in what we call the price of gold, but it's not at all. Gold is just holding its purchasing power whilst everything else priced in US dollars appears to be getting much more expensive, which is not the right way of thinking at it. Is, you know, obviously you know this, but hopefully, you know, people watching this will start to think about it in those terms. It's not, you know, the price of things going up. It's your dollar going down into the toilet that's doing that. It's an optical illusion.
But it's you know, the motivation to use gold as money is not just about inflation either, though. I mean, Patrick, your family's from Lebanon. You saw it in terms of, and you know, we interviewed somebody from Cyprus who lost everything in a bail-in. So, you know, when you have these, deflationary busts and stuff like that, and banks go bankrupt, et cetera. So that's another big part is, you know, there's protect yourself against inflation, but also protecting yourself against that counterparty risk, over lending, you know, leverage, you know, having physical gold and silver is a way to protect against that.
Look, Jim, I know you got to run. We're probably going to have to catch up another time soon there to do a part two, especially if you get progress on the legislative side there. We're super interested, and I'm pretty sure a lot of our followers on YouTube, Twitter, and on the website there, they appreciate your thoughts and all that behind the scenes there, what's happening there. It's cool to know that stuff's moving.
Well, thanks for taking part in it by helping us with charts. And yeah, people want to check out more, citizensforsoundmoney.org with the number 4. You can go to the legislative initiatives. We're fundraising for that effort, so there's an opportunity to donate there, and we definitely appreciate you guys donating your time to make those charts for us.
No problem. We'll put the links to all that in the description, guys. Thanks again, Jim, Kevin.
All right, thanks.
Cheers, Jim. Thanks a lot.
Take care, guys.
Please subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. Thanks, guys.